I had always felt like the odd one out among my friends. They were all 16, just like me, and they had one common hobby: going out to clubs in the evenings. They would dance, laugh, and make countless memories together. But there was one problem: I had no way of getting into those clubs. My friends had all managed to get fake ID cards from older sisters or friends who looked enough like them to pass for 18, but I had no such connections. Frustration gnawed at me as I watched them head out each weekend, leaving me behind. I longed to be part of their adventures, to dance under the neon lights. But without an ID, it seemed impossible. One evening, after my friends had left for yet another night of excitement, I sat alone in my room, scrolling through social media, feeling like an outsider. That's when a friend of mine, Mark, messaged me. Mark was known for his ventures into the dark web, a realm most of us only heard of in hushed whispers. "You know, there's a way for you to get that ID," Mark's message read, piquing my interest. "How?" I replied, my curiosity overriding my caution. Mark explained that he had a contact on the dark web who could provide me with a fake ID. He said it was risky but assured me that if I followed his instructions carefully, I'd be able to join my friends on their club-hopping adventures. After some back and forth, I reluctantly agreed. Mark guided me through the process of contacting his dark web contact. I provided my details, a photo, and waited anxiously. The price was steep, but I was willing to pay it for a taste of the life my friends enjoyed. A few days later, the ID arrived. It looked convincing enough, and I felt a mixture of excitement and guilt as I held it in my hands. That weekend, I was ready to join my friends for a night I'd never forget. As I walked to the club, I couldn't help but feel a shiver of unease. The night was darker than usual, and shadows seemed to dance in the corners of my vision. I told myself it was just pre-party jitters, but deep down, a sense of foreboding gnawed at my gut. I had almost reached the club when I felt a sudden, vice-like grip on my arm. Panic surged through me as I turned to see a man, his face obscured by a mask, towering over me. Before I could scream, he clamped a cloth soaked in a sickly sweet odor over my mouth, and the world spun into darkness. When I finally regained consciousness, I woke up in a metal cage. I was in a nightmarish place, a dimly lit underground tunnel. My head throbbed with pain, and my vision swam as I tried to make sense of my surroundings. Panic set in when I realized I wasn't alone. Other teenagers, like me, were locked in metal cages, their faces etched with terror. In the dimly lit underground tunnel, terror clung to me like a second skin. I huddled in the cage, my heart pounding, tears streaming down my cheeks as I cried for help. The other kids around me echoed my fear, and our collective despair hung heavily in the air. Suddenly, a masked man appeared, his eyes hidden behind the cold, emotionless facade of the mask. In his gloved hand, he clutched a gleaming knife that gleamed malevolently in the dim light. My cries fell silent as my fear intensified, and I realized that making a sound could cost me my life. He pointed the knife at me, a gesture that was as chilling as his masked expression, and his voice emerged as a harsh whisper, "Shut up." I obeyed, trembling with dread. With each passing moment, I couldn't help but wonder why I had been kidnapped. Was this a random act, or did it have something to do with the fake ID I had acquired? My thoughts were a tumultuous whirlwind, but no answers surfaced in the darkness of the underground. The terror around me reached a new level when I witnessed unimaginable horrors. Some of the other children were forcibly taken from their cages and dragged into a room deeper within the tunnel. The air was filled with their heart-wrenching screams, the sounds that haunted my nightmares even when I managed to drift into fitful sleep. The minutes felt like hours as we listened to the chilling symphony of agony. When the door finally creaked open, a man emerged, his clothes drenched in blood, dragging a black sack that seemed to writhe with a sinister presence. People, hidden behind masks and shadowy figures, arrived, scanning the children like merchandise on display. Their eyes were filled with a predatory hunger, and it became painfully clear that these kidnappers were operating a nightmarish market for human trafficking. Children, innocent like me, were nothing more than commodities to be sold to the highest bidder. Terror gripped me as I realized the full extent of the horror I had stumbled into. Days turned into agonizing nights as I, along with the other terrified teenagers, remained trapped in the underground cage. We huddled together, finding some solace in our shared fear, but each day only deepened our despair. Then, one fateful day, a man arrived, his face obscured by a mask just like the others. He walked among the cages, and as he did, he seemed to be selecting his prey. When he reached me, his cold eyes met mine, and he pointed to me. My heart raced, and a feeling of doom washed over me as I realized that I had been chosen. The masked men took me from my cage and sedated me, my vision fading into a merciful darkness. When I woke up, it was to a starkly different scene. I lay in a hospital bed, my groggy mind struggling to make sense of what had transpired. A police officer stood by my bedside, his presence providing a glimmer of hope. Tears welled in my eyes as the officer told me that the police had been hunting this human trafficking organization for years, and they had finally succeeded. My sobs of relief filled the room, echoing my overwhelming gratitude for the officers who had saved me from the horrors of that underground nightmare. Just as I was beginning to hope that my ordeal was over, my parents entered the room. Their tearful eyes met mine, and we embraced in a heart-wrenching reunion. The warmth of their love surrounded me, a stark contrast to the cold and darkness I had endured. I was finally free, but the memories of those nights in the underground tunnel would forever haunt my dreams. My heart ached for the other children who had been trapped with me, and I prayed that they, too, might find their way to safety and freedom.
I was a computer science student, and like many in my field, I had a curiosity that sometimes led me to the darker corners of the internet. The mysteries of the web, especially the infamous dark web, intrigued me. I knew the dangers of navigating these shadowy realms, but my thirst for knowledge often got the better of me. One day, a friend from my university, Alex, messaged me. Alex shared my enthusiasm for programming and often treaded the same online alleys as I did. He sent me a link that he had recently discovered, and the message was straightforward: check this out. As I clicked the link, I found myself on a cryptic website. The main banner simply read, "Win $1 million, my eyebrows furrowed as I scanned the page, which promised cash rewards for each milestone reached. My initial reaction was skepticism. The promise of easy money on the dark web reeked of a scam. Alex and I exchanged messages, both of us aware of the potential dangers of participating. Yet, our shared curiosity prevailed over caution. We decided to give it a try, thinking that it would be an interesting challenge, even if the promised rewards were unlikely to be genuine. The first few levels seemed relatively innocuous. They involved simple tasks like clicking a link and copying some information, all within the bounds of the dark web. We breezed through these with ease, a sense of accomplishment washing over us as we moved up the levels. To our surprise, when we completed the 20th level, we each received $100 in Bitcoin. It was a small amount, but it inspired us to continue. As we delved further into the challenge, the tasks grew increasingly complex and cryptic. We were required to hunt down obscure information scattered across the dark web's abyss without any guidance. The levels beyond the 20th seemed like a never-ending maze of shadowy corners, their obscurity reflecting the eerie depths of the dark web itself. We stumbled through these challenges, constantly feeling like we were on the verge of giving up. But then came a moment that reignited our determination. Upon conquering the 40th level, we were rewarded not with a measly $100 but with a staggering $1,000 in Bitcoin. Our jaws dropped in disbelief. It was an unexpected windfall that defied our earlier skepticism. The revelation that the rewards were growing exponentially with each set of 20 levels motivated us further. We realized that this was not a mere scam. For every 20 levels we completed, the prize money increased tenfold. So, if we could somehow reach the 100th level, we would be awarded a mind-boggling $1 million. Our ambitions and curiosity were now inextricably entangled with the dark web challenge. The line between reality and this cryptic, enigmatic game had blurred beyond recognition. We couldn't turn back now. The temptation of the ultimate reward was too potent to resist. As we delved deeper into the challenge, our initial curiosity began to twist into something darker and more troubling. It wasn't long before we realized that this wasn't merely a game, it was a descent into illegality. The tasks we were given extended beyond the boundaries of mere online puzzles and began to involve activities that were patently illegal. The challenges required us to hack social network accounts, invade online privacy, and even engage in DDoS attacks. Each action we took left us with a growing sense of guilt and dread. Upon completing the 60th level, we received a reward of $10,000 each. The magnitude of the prize was staggering, yet it was overshadowed by the moral darkness that had enveloped us. We had followed the path of temptation into a world of wrongdoing, and our actions were beyond redemption. The allure of the escalating prizes had cast its spell on us. The promise of $100,000 for reaching the 80 level was a tantalizing temptation we couldn't resist. The tasks beyond level 60 had morphed into something far more disturbing and real. Initially, they appeared deceptively simple, like noting down a person's daily routine or taking a photograph. It was an invasion of privacy, but at first, it didn't feel as morally reprehensible as our earlier deeds. When we reached level 80, the task seemed straightforward. It merely read, "Go to this address." We hesitated, the pit of apprehension in our stomachs growing deeper, but we rationalized that we could complete level 80, take the substantial prize money, and bring this harrowing game to an end. We arrived at the specified location, our footsteps echoing with uncertainty. There, in the dimly lit room, we confronted a scene that froze our blood. A man, bound and gagged, lay helpless on the floor, his eyes wide with terror. Next to him was a knife, stained with the promise of violence. Beside the blade was a short message scrawled on a piece of cardboard, "Kill him." We recoiled in shock, horror washing over us. This was not a game, it was a nightmarish descent into the depths of human malevolence. The moral abyss we had entered now gaped wide before us, and we were teetering on the precipice of something unimaginably evil. As the chilling realization of the situation washed over us, we fled in a blind panic. Fear coursed through our veins, guiding our frantic escape. In our haste, we piled into the car and sped away from that macabre scene. As we distanced ourselves from the location, the weight of our actions bore down on us like a crushing burden. We knew that if we called the police and revealed everything, we would undoubtedly be implicated in the illegal activities we had been coerced into. Our own dark deeds loomed heavily over our conscience, ready to condemn us. In the throes of panic and moral turmoil, we made a fateful decision not to call the authorities. Instead, we chose to bury our guilt and secrets deep within us. It was a choice driven by fear and the desperate desire to escape the looming consequences. From that day forward, an unshakable paranoia gripped us. We couldn't help but feel that sinister eyes were constantly upon us, tracking our every move. The ordinary world became a labyrinth of fear, and we grew afraid to venture outside. We had seen too much. The dark web had ensnared us in its malevolent grip, and we were forever marked by the choices we had made. Today I am writing this story from an anonymous account to warn you about the dangers of the dark web. The promise of easy riches can lead you down a harrowing path from which there may be no return. It's a realm where morality crumbles and conscience shatters, leaving you forever haunted by the abyss of your own choices. Learn from our terrible journey and steer clear of the depths of the dark web. It's a place where curiosity can lead to a descent into madness, a descent from which you might never emerge. It was a stormy night when I first stumbled upon the haunting marketplace, an online underworld shrouded in secrecy. I was no stranger to the darker corners of the internet, my journalistic career having led me to explore the murky depths of cybercrime, but what I discovered on this occasion would plunge me into a nightmare I couldn't have imagined. Rumors had been circulating for months about an enigmatic corner of the dark web where the unthinkable was offered for sale: curses, hexes, sinister rituals, and more. I was skeptical, of course. The internet was brimming with hoaxes and scams, and I had debunked my fair share of supernatural claims. Still, the allure of this hidden marketplace was impossible to resist. I asked around in different chat rooms and stumbled upon a link that promised access to the fabled marketplace. It was the digital equivalent of entering a forbidden temple. Upon entering, my screen filled with grotesque imagery and cryptic symbols, and the unsettling chatter of the dark web's denizens flooded my ears. This place was no ordinary marketplace, it was a sinister bazaar where the laws of the mundane world held no sway. Here, one could purchase more than just contraband, they could purchase malevolence. Sellers with cryptic pseudonyms offered their dark services, from curses and hexes to rituals that promised to summon unimaginable horrors. The descriptions were unsettling, and the prices exorbitant, but these transactions seemed to be more than just digital snake oil. Reviews from buyers spoke of real consequences: illness, misfortune, and even death. As I delved deeper into the haunting marketplace, I discovered a seller known as the Crimson Witch, who offered an item unlike any other. It was a peculiar-looking doll, ancient and sinister, said to contain the imprisoned spirit of a demon. The seller warned me that the doll was not to be trifled with, it should be handed over to someone I wished to inflict harm upon. I read his cautionary tales, but I was resolute in my skepticism. I decided to purchase the possessed doll, my journalist's curiosity getting the better of me. In my mind, I saw the headline that would propel me to the top of my field: the truth about the dark web's malevolent merchandise. Little did I know the dangerous path I was about to tread. As the package arrived, I performed the ritual that the Crimson Witch had provided, just as they had instructed, except with the intention of disproving the supernatural claims surrounding the doll. The demon was to be unleashed, or so the legend went, by lighting 3 black candles, reciting a cursed incantation, and breaking the binding seal on the doll. The room grew cold as I completed the ritual, and I thought of the groundbreaking article I was going to write. Yet, as I placed the now unbound doll on my desk, an overwhelming sense of unease washed over me. The doll's eyes seemed to shimmer with malevolence, and I hesitated for the briefest moment before dismissing it as my own imagination. But strange occurrences soon began to plague my life. The doll's presence felt ever ominous, and I would hear whispers in the night, incomprehensible voices that slithered into my dreams and woke me in a cold sweat. My health deteriorated, my mind became clouded, and inexplicable pains racked my body. The nightmarish events that had plagued my life became increasingly unbearable. I had almost resigned myself to the fact that the curse was going to consume me when an incident occurred that shook me to my core. One night, I woke up from yet another tormenting nightmare, drenched in cold sweat. My throat was parched, and I decided to go to the kitchen for a glass of water. As I moved to leave the bedroom, the door slammed shut in front of me with a sudden, violent force. I stumbled back in shock, my heart pounding in my chest. I slowly turned to see the doll sitting on my bed staring at me. But she wasn't supposed to be here. I had left it safely in my home office, away from my sleeping quarters. Panic coursed through my veins as I gazed into those malevolent, lifelike eyes that seemed to fixate on my very soul. I knew that I had to do something drastic, something that might end this nightmare. Desperation led me back to the Crimson Witch. I contacted this enigmatic seller and explained my dire situation. He responded promptly, his tone as eerie as ever, and offered a solution, an expensive and dangerous one. For a hefty sum of money, the Crimson Witch provided me with a set of instructions. I had to bury the doll away from home, as far away from my living space as possible. As I dug a hole in the earth with trembling hands, a growing dread gnawed at me. The wind seemed to whisper ominous secrets as I placed the malevolent doll into the hole. The creature's eyes, which had tormented me for so long, seemed to burn with a sinister intensity. Returning home, I knew there was one last step to this eerie journey, the purification ritual. I followed the instructions provided by the Crimson Witch to sever the demon's connection to me. The following nights were peaceful, devoid of the haunting whispers and oppressive presence that had plagued me for so long. My health slowly improved, and the inexplicable pains that had racked my body began to recede. It was as if the curse had finally been broken, and I was free from the malevolent forces. As I closed the chapter on this nightmarish experience, I couldn't help but wonder how many others might fall victim to the lure of the dark web and the horrors it concealed. The haunting marketplace was a testament to the darkness that dwelled within the hidden corners of the internet, a place where curses and demons were just a few clicks away from becoming a terrifying reality.